I can't protect anybody.
I think you could do it. You just size alone will take care of you.
The size was good, but the problem is there's no real. I'm not gonna choke somebody out for some.
Oh, you say that.
Oh, actually,
all right.
I did.
Well, with that, we're starting another wonderful episode here. We are the second episode out of 2025, and I am here with Alex Wistance.
Yep.
This is your third time on my show, but
Yes.
I think, like Cooper, this will be the first one that airs because the first one was at Barber, sounded like shit. Second one, we were a little tuned up on the pre-workout.
That was my fault.
Many words were shared.
Yeah.
But after that, it's been long enough, and I actually haven't seen you in a while, so we got a fair amount to catch up on.
For sure.
But you are a fantastic BMX professional. You've done X Games. You are a YouTube phenom.
I would say less on the fantastic. I think I was more known for documenting X Games with my friends, and then also going there and just being kind of. I had like the best. I don't know, man. Like I had the best way of going about it. I feel like because I was never the best.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I know I'm not the best at this, but I'm like, I'm gonna figure out.
You're
a
not
way
just being
to,
humble. You were just saying like, it's pretty mediocre.
I mean, realistically, comparatively, some of those dudes, like to like my buddy back in the day, Scotty, that like we started the YouTube channel with back in the day, that dude was a 9 times X Games medalist, and then at the time I was just like. Younger was like a chubby kid on a BMX bike, lost a bunch of weight, and then got like decent on a BMX bike, but I was never at the level of a guy like Scotty. Like there's no way I would be doing flip double whips, but that was what made it such a cool thing was you had this guy who was next level professional with this young dude who just lost a bunch of weight but was down to try whatever. So I knew I wasn't the best, but I was game on to give anything. Like so we'd film videos all the time of like me trying these tricks that were way out of the realm of possibility for me, and then somehow them working out, and I'm just like, oh wait, maybe I'm better at this than I thought I was. But it was never like, if it wasn't for those dudes, I would have never done it.
For those that don't know a bit about your background, were those things kind of coupled up where you were getting progressively better at BMX while simultaneously losing a lot of weight? Like you're known as Big Boy.
Yeah.
And you used to be a big boy.
Yeah. So when I first started riding BMX, I wasn't fat. I started at a skate park in New Jersey called Shield Skate Park when I was probably 15. Before then, I had started as a little kid on a skate park. I mean, I've been around skate parks since I was 6 years old. When I moved to the States, when I turned 6, my mom got me a skateboard for my birthday.
Because you're Canadian.
Yes, I'm Canadian. I moved from Canada. And she got me a skateboard.
We won't hold that against him.
And I did. Well, listen, I'd love to visit. I don't think I could live there anymore. But I don't know. It's seemingly we're not getting political here, but seemingly they're making some good directions over there in Canada right now, some of their choices. So it could be a great place again. But when I moved to the States, my mom got me a skateboard. I got super into it, and then we'd go to the skate park. And then rollerblading at that time period was massive. So people can make fun of me for what they want, but I just call it a chapter. I was into rollerblading super hardcore, and I got like actually pretty decent on rollerblades, like doing flips and stuff like that, doing contests, but never like really. It was when I got into it was almost on the down decline of it, but this for some reason
when it started becoming fruit booting.
Yes, that would be the nickname for it. But then I got into riding for a bit. The scooter thing blew up, so I did that with some kids at the skate park. Well, rollerblading, but I just bought a scooter.
So much cooler than rollerblades.
Yeah, neither one of them were that. But the thing is,
I say that by the way, I still have. I got myself a new pair of skates not too long ago.
Yeah,
and I enjoy the inline.
Dude, it's coming back.
It's great. You ever you got the belt line?
Yeah.
Just catch that freaking.
It's coming back. I mean, and then it was like the scooter. I realized pretty quickly. I'm like, I'm way too large for this. So then
geometrically bad.
Yeah. So then what happened was a bunch of kids at the skate park were like, hey, we're going to Camp Woodward, but we're all going on bikes, so you got to get a bike or you can't come.
And Woodward is this like kind of training facility?
Yeah, it's like an action sports camp. They got one in California and they got one in Pennsylvania, kind of near New Jersey. So that was obviously the one I went to because I lived in Jersey. But I was like, screw it, I'll get a bike. I went to Woodward, and the first trick I ever learned on a bike was a flare. And I remember being like, oh, man, this is awesome. So I was a big dude. Like, at that point, I was overweight because what happened was...
Give me some numbers. What are we talking here?
The last point I weighed myself when I got over it, I was 305. And so I was 6 foot
Miami
something,
numbers.
305, and I was large and in charge. But, like, me being tall, it kind of made it work out.
Yeah.
Had I been like 5 foot something, I would have been really large and in charge, you know. But I spread it out over a good portion of body.
Because you're like 6'4", 6'5"?
6'4", yeah. And then so we went there, and that was it. I knew that after trying all these things, at the ripe age of 15, I was going to get fully into BMX, which is kind of late comparatively to like a lot of the other kids. But then my skate park closed down, so I had a year off, and I was finishing.
Well, shout out to Mom. She was the one that was trekking you to the park all the time.
My mom, I owe every bit of my career.
We love you, Mom.
On a BMX bike to my mom, because when my skate park closed down, I had to take a year off, and I would ride around like the local town that I lived in and just ride street. And there's a couple kids there, but I think my mom simultaneously realized that had I had stayed there and not gone to the skate park, the kids that I were hanging out with, like nothing against them, but
going down a wrong track.
They might have been going down a slightly wrong track. So my mom was like, "Well, where's the closest skate park?" It wasn't close. It was an hour and a half away. 69 miles there, 69 miles back. So my mom every day would get off of work at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, get me in the car, and we would drive to the Incline Club, which is what basically created my career. Because fast forward down the road, one of my best friends that I met at the skate park was Matty Kramer, and his parents owned it. And his parents were Scott and Donna Kramer. Mm-hmm. And again, I owe a lot of my success to them as well. Their oldest son, so the oldest son that was related to like just Matty and his sister and all them is Scotty. So I met Scotty through Matty. Scotty was the reason that skate park was so famous, because he was a 9-time X Games medalist. Just all around one of the best BMX riders of all time. His parents owned it, so he rode there every day. And then basically what happened was he had to move. He was moving from a house to another house. And he was at the skate park one day, and me and Matty were so close at this point. Matty couldn't do something or something like that, so he's like, "Hey, do you want to help me move?" And then I helped him move a bunch. And
you're like, what, 17, 18 at this time?
Yeah, I was driving, so I just turned 17, so I had my license. So it was great. Like, it worked out so good. At this point, I could drive myself every day. And I had worked at his parents' skate park for a little bit. His mom actually fired me because once me and Scotty...
Because she had sense.
Yeah, no, she knew that I was not. Well, the thing was, we started doing the YouTube, so me and Scotty got really close. And we started doing this YouTube because when we were moving him, I was watching at the time this is right when I started losing weight.
Well, so YouTube at this point is like really starting to hit. Like people are getting viral and making money. Yeah,
this is before like what they called the YouTube adpocalypse.
Oh shit.
So basically, what happened was like this was like the new thing. So I was the young kid at the skate park. Scotty was a little bit older than I was. He had no desire in any of the social media stuff.
Right.
But I was watching when I was moving him, when I just started losing weight, there's a guy named Bradley Martin, which I'm sure there's tons of people who know that guy. He's pretty famous still to this day. He would do these daily vlogs, basically showing himself work out. And it was just like me looking at this like dude, now I know at the time was just like this juiced up dude. I'm like, I want to look like that. Yeah. And so I would get super into his videos and I'd watch him every day. And my buddy was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I watch this guy every day." He's like, "Why?" I was like, "I don't know. He's just doing things, normal people things every day." And my buddy's like, "That's so weird." I'm like, "Dude, we should do the day in the life of you," because at the time at the skate park, I was always filming edits for people. Right. We would film like BMX edits, and then I would edit them.
Where would these go? Just YouTube, or what was?
It would just be for whoever at the skate park was there. Like if someone was like, "Hey, I want to put an edit at the skate park," we would film a bunch of clips, and then I would edit them, and then we put them out. And they'd go on YouTube, Vimeo at the time actually as well. Yeah. And then I said to my buddy, I was like, "We should do the day in the life of you," because he was so popular in BMX. But at that time period, X Games had just been non-televised, which was a massive blow to any professional BMX rider, because when it was televised, the sponsor money would be astronomical. Like these dudes that originally rode X Games back in the day.
Was like Sobe pulled out like their main?
Dude, it was insane. Back in the day in X Games, like for example, I can use Scotty because I know him so well. But he had, at one point in time, Tylenol, Verizon, Axe body spray, like crazy big sponsors. They would match pay and all that stuff. And then once the television stuff stopped happening, a lot of these sponsors were not pulling out completely, but seriously backing out on funding. Yeah. So that was like a thing I saw. And it was like kind of the perfect storm of like a young dude who understood social media, and then another guy who is obviously so seemingly talented on a BMX bike. I was like, dude, we should start doing it. He didn't really seem so into it, and then he went on a riding trip, and there was a guy that was there, and he was like watching all these kids. This dude was very much so like myself, not the best BMX rider, not really like that well known in BMX, but because of his YouTube channel and kids following him so much, he blew up. The dude had millions of subscribers and was every kid at this contest. This dude wasn't even competing. That's like the same with me. This guy wasn't even competing in the contest, but all these kids are at this contest to meet this guy hanging out in the crowd versus all the riders. So my buddy came back. He's like, "Let's start a YouTube channel." Let's do
like
it.
An aha moment. He was like, "That's what we got to do."
Because it was just the shift of times, you know. Like you kind of gotta, and that's it with everything. You gotta move. So and I give my buddy great credit. He went out and bought the sickest camera setup. He went out and bought a computer. I taught him everything I knew how I knew how to edit, which wasn't much. Then he figured it all out and blew me out of the water. So then we just started filming YouTube videos 7 days a week, every single day uploading, and it just started from there. And dude, nothing was happening. Nothing. We were just making these videos, and I remember I felt so bad at the time because here I am, 17, maybe 18 at this point. I don't care. I'm going to film these videos regardless.
Yeah.
But he's in his late 20s where I'm at now, and now me being in the spot that I'm at now, I can understand how stressful that would be because he's like,
what am I doing?
He's like, this is fun for you, dude, but I need to make some money. And I'm like, in my head, I go, dude, it's going to happen. And me just being like I've been like this my whole life. Anyone who knows me, I'm always like the dumbly optimistic person where I'm like, dude, it's going to be fine. It's going to work out. And then it did.
Yeah.
Dude, it was so random. I remember when we hit our first 100,000 subscribers, we were all like, holy shit. Like we couldn't believe it.
Was it like kind of a sequential thing, like back to back? You're like, oh, this one hit. Oh, this one hit. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa.
So what happened was we hit 100,000 subscribers, and then we took a trip to California for the Vans Huntington. Vans used to do a Huntington BMX like Pro Cup, and it was on the beach. And Scotty was competing in it. His little brother Matty was an alternate, and again, me just being there to document and have fun. I was like basically like my BMX career was, I was the sideshow. Yeah. Like I was like there's dudes that have been like there's the guy. Have you ever heard of Dingo for Monster? Like he was like. Kind of the same thing where it's like this guy's more his personality is what kept him around rather than his skills. And Dingo was, I think, pretty talented back in the day, but I think he just like kind of got into that role and just really ran with it.
He just grew hair.
Yeah, and everyone loved that dude. So I would we went to California. I had never been to California before in my entire life. I get off the plane from Orange County Airport. We get to our Airbnb. We're unloading our bikes. We put our bikes together, and my buddy's like, hey, let's go check out the course. Yeah. So we leave the Airbnb. We're pedaling across the highway. Me and my other buddy, Trey, go to hop over this median that's in the middle of the highway. I don't see him coming. My fault completely. I go hop it, and I run straight into the side of him. I eat shit on the middle of the PCH so hard that it was like traffic stops. Everyone's staring at us, and my buddy Scotty got it on film on a GoPro that he was holding. And in that clip, which is the craziest thing ever, I eat shit on the ground, and some kid on the sidewalk goes, "Oh shit, it's Big Boy!" And at that moment in time, we were like, mind you, this is a town where there's a BMX event happening. A lot of BMX kids around.
I don't think I've heard that story before.
So it makes sense that a kid would say that. But at that moment in time, in our heads, we're like, whoa, this is kind of catching some traction. We're in California, and some kid recognized us.
In that moment on the asphalt, as you're just splayed out, did you hear that? Or was it not until you guys
I didn't hear that until we reviewed the footage.
Oh, that's cool.
But so I get up. I'm so embarrassed, dude. Yeah. But that was like kind of like the tipping point. After we uploaded that video, 2 weeks later, we were at 200,000 subscribers. A month later, we were at 500,000 subscribers. Ooh. So it like whatever that weird moment was, that viral clip,
people falling down,
it exploded, dude. I mean, and that's the thing though. So like that's where it comes into this is like when you said, oh, you're like this, so I would basically get to go to X Games with Scotty and those dudes, never have to compete, but I still got to do like some really like random brand deals for like, dude, I did a brand deal for Jack's Links. I wasn't riding. I was there hanging out, filming it. But that's the thing. That's where this shift happened. And I remember being at X Games and I'm like, I almost felt kind of bad in a sense because it's like, you're here at X Games. You have these guys who all they do is ride every single day. They train to get better, and they're at X Games and they're riding this contest, risking their lives on these big dirt jumps, this massive park course and the street course, and they're putting themselves on the line to win a paycheck, maybe, if they get first, second, or third. And I don't know at this point in time if people were getting paid just to show up. It used to be like that back in the day. I didn't even know the logistics of it. But I felt bad because here I am there, young kid with a camera, being an idiot and getting paid to be there. But at the same time, it was just kind of that natural shift. So I think it was kind of cool, too, because there's a lot of people that moment in time that realized, well, crap, maybe there's a way that we can get ourselves sponsored without having – because, like, if you think about the mental stress of, like, something like that, and I always said that to my buddy Scotty, I was like, you ride X Games, that's your Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Every year, all these guys would wait for X Games, that's their Super Bowl. And you would ride every single day trying to learn new tricks to just get 1 minute run ready to go for this contest. And then you go there and you slip a foot and it's all down the drain.
Yeah.
That right there, that mental stress is something that I would never ever want to
It's like the
experience.
freaking Olympics,
Dude, and that's
you
the
get
same
4
thing.
years for one moment, and then you like biff it just a week before, and you can't go.
And that's the thing. But so then I think at that moment in time, me and my buddy, like I saw my buddy Scotty not stop riding at a high level, but I think he stopped putting so much pressure on himself to focus so hard on these contests.
Yeah.
Which I would think might have rubbed some people that were like in the industry of BMX the wrong way. But again, it was just like the natural evolution of things.
There's there's always shifts like that in marketing and you know, dollars spent. And so when you had the opportunity, you know, strike while the iron's hot as such, like there's just those weird things that happen, those shifts where all of a sudden people are throwing money, brands are throwing money at things that they don't understand because they're like, I don't know. What do you see right now? Is anything happening right now that you're like, you know, this is the latest that?
Well, so that's the thing that was like kind of created a massive shift in my life. So
I say that I'm trying to take notes here. I'm like, tell me.
In the grand scheme of things, when I was a kid and we started I was in college when all this was happening and I dropped out because I remember saying to myself,
graduate?
No, I did not. I remember dropping out and I didn't tell my mom until I dropped out and she was furious and she's like, well, figure it out. But in my head, I had this weird feeling. I was like, whatever we're doing is going to work enough for a certain amount of time. And then down the road, I'll have to figure something out. And then I would say probably like fast forward years, like quick take on it. Like me and my buddy Scotty did the YouTube for this point together for 7 years. And then eventually he didn't want to, live in Orlando anymore. Want to go back to Jersey. I had just bought a house in Orlando. So we decided to go our separate ways. So I started my own YouTube channel. And I was just focused on YouTube. I didn't care about being the best BMX rider. I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted to film ridiculous videos with my friends. So we took a massive shift. Like,
would you call this lifestyle? Is what?
It was lifestyle, but it was like a modern day version of Jackass. It was just like a bunch of Florida dudes doing the most Florida redneck stuff possible with bikes. Like bikes were included in everything, but then it was like the videos would be like, we're building this skate park at this property that I bought through the channel. And we built the skate park out of concrete, but then we were blowing up cars, jumping cars, lighting cars on fire, building slip and slides through the woods that were 60 feet tall through hoops of fire. Obviously. And it just turned into this massive thing. And then eventually the city caught on to what was going on due to some neighbors, even though we were in the middle of nowhere. And it was a reality check of like, oh, you're not untouchable. And then the city shut us down. I had to go to court, had to fight the city. I ended up winning, kind of. Like, I didn't get fined anything. They didn't make me tear my property down from the skate park, but they just said you couldn't do anything more. So at that point in time, I go, okay, cool. So like, then that's when TikTok was coming out and all these other things were coming out. So I was like, okay, here's the shift. You either get on the board of that shift or you figure out something else and you move on. So I was never, like, even though I did the YouTube stuff, I was never really like super into YouTube. Like the idea of being a YouTuber, like I didn't care to do like the go to the video cons or any of that stuff. I just wanted to film videos and document things that we were doing with our friends that included BMX, but it wasn't like focused on contests or getting better on a bike. It was just what we were doing. It was fun and we just wanted to film it. So then I realized it's like, okay, that's not going to work forever. So I was like, you know what? At a certain point, I realized that I was starting to film videos not for myself anymore, but to make videos,
right? To
basically create a living for myself. And I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore because you're losing. Now
you
you're
start
losing
realizing
the
like
passion.
it had a shelf life. You're like, this has a shelf life, and if I don't change it up. When from a BMX standpoint, like the professionals in that sport, like is it often that they kind of have that macro view that they can step back and go, oh, this is going to run out, or?
Well, so it's hard because there's outliers in everything. Like there's guys that are still BMX professionals that are absolutely crushing it, and BMX in itself is actually still doing decently well. It's a very small niche thing. It always has been. But I think the main thing that has changed so much is just social media and the youth nowadays. It's a lot harder to get a kid to want to buy a bike and go risk himself at a skate park, breaking his arm, when he could play Fortnite and see a guy like the Ninja dude make millions and millions of dollars never leaving his house. And so then we saw Twitch come up, we saw the live streamers come up, and then now that's like the podcast stuff too, which is another thing that's like a big thing.
Tell me more.
Well, I don't understand it. I mean, I give great, and seeing the setup that Sam has here, it's like I've seen it progress from day one to now, and it's like this is pro, but this is a lot of work. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into this, and I just think that I was like, at a certain point, I was like, I either have to hop on this TikTok train, which I couldn't do. It's not that I have anything against it. I wasn't into like. The other thing too is you start realizing you start doing these videos that are like a little bit untrue to yourself, to please the masses.
It's just like formulaic, and you're just
Yes.
having to do what the. It's so silly.
Well, and that's the problem too. It's like you find yourself doing these things to please others, and then your paychecks and anything.
Honestly,
you do,
though, if you started doing TikTok dances, I would like and subscribe.
see, I mean, I took
rule
a
it
couple
out.
dance classes while I've
Don't
been
rule
here
it
in
out.
Atlanta, so I mean, maybe I'm pretty good at it. But you just start doing these things that you're realizing are not true to yourself, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I think it's time for me to do something bigger and better. And that's when I decided. I was like, and it was like cold turkey. I was like, in my head, I go. And I have a lot of people ask me, like, why did you just stop doing YouTube completely? Like, I haven't filmed a YouTube video in over a year. I don't really post on Instagram that much anymore. But I wanted to get into stunts. And I was like, if I don't do, like, so like when it came to YouTube, I dropped out of college because I realized if I was going 50% effort into college to get a degree and 50% effort into YouTube, both would suffer and neither one would work that great.
Yep.
So then I realized, okay, I'm going to go 100% into YouTube. So I basically just applied that same formula to moving here, not knowing what I was doing at all. Like I basically was just like, okay, I hit up a buddy who is a former BMX guy, and I'll give him great credit on this, Mike Escamino, Rooftop.
Yep.
I grew up watching him. He was a stunt guy, and I had known that for years. So I had talked to him. I was like, hey, dude, I really want to get into this. Like, what's the best way? And he didn't shut me down, but he did let me know how hard this industry is. But it was not in a negative way. It was a very positive way. It's like,
Yeah.
and I remember this talk. I was in a Walmart in Florida, in Castleberry, and he called me. I gave him my phone number, and he called me. And he's like, yo, dude. He's like, good to hear from you. Hope you've been well. Here's the deal, man. You can move to L.A., Georgia, or New York. He goes, it's going to be super hard. There's going to be 1,000 people that tell you can't do it. But if you want to do it, you can do it. You just have to want it.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2 weeks later, I rented an apartment in Decatur, Georgia.
Yeah.
Rented out my house in Florida and lived here. And he said, call me when you start figuring things out. 2 weeks later, I call him. Hey, dude, I'm in Atlanta. I just moved here. He was just like, what? And then, so he said, hey, exactly what I said. Just get in, be around people, just start working,
Yep.
start trying to figure it out. But when I moved here, I didn't know any. Dude, I literally moved here.
You
and,
met
like,
me, and it's been downhill since, folks.
no, it's been great, dude. We've all, and like meeting the people that I've met here have been so incredibly lucky. But like, I remember, again, and this is another thing though, I owe it all to BMX because when I moved here, I posted on my Instagram, hey, does anybody know any good skate parks to ride? And does anybody want to go ride? I literally didn't know anybody. So I just wanted friends, dude.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to I felt so out of place. I missed my house in Florida because I had a good setup there. Again, I didn't need to stop doing YouTube. It was a choice that I was like, I want to get into stunts. I need to just cut this completely off and just make the leap. I took the leap of faith, moved here, but I just wanted friends, dude. I didn't know anybody. And Jason.
Yeah.
Jason DM'd
Also
me.
an alumni for the podcast, Jason Gupton.
Yeah, Jason DM'd me and was like, hey, dude, I'm in Georgia. Let's meet at a coffee shop and go ride Old Fourth Ward. I'm like, cool. So I go meet this guy at a coffee shop. I've never met him in my life before. And then I get there and I was like, oh, damn, dude. I was like, how did you follow me? Like, because I didn't, I'm like in my head, I'm like, how does this guy follow me? He's like, oh, I used to watch your YouTube videos and stuff like that when I saw your posts. I was like, oh, what are you doing here in Georgia? He's like, oh, I'm here for work. And he didn't say what he's here working for. So then we were having coffee and he's like, wait, why are you here in Georgia? And I was like, dude, I just moved here. He's like, wait, you moved to Atlanta? I was like, yeah. He's like, what happened to all the Florida stuff? Like, you guys had a good thing there. And I'm like, dude, I'm said it's going to sound crazy. And it's not probably going to make any sense to you, but I was like, I moved here to get into this thing called stunts, like for TV and film. And he was just like, you could see this like aha moment where he's just like, wait, what? He's like, dude, that's what I do. And in my head, I'm like, what are the odds of that? Like, so it was just like one of those things where it's like, I felt like I took this massive leap of faith and then like, it was like rewarded
And you were
with
caught
this.
by the angel hands of Jason Gupton.
Literally.
And he goes, come to Rocky Mountain. You go, whoa, wait a minute.
God, that town is the best place ever. It's crazy. But then I met you guys. I met like all of our friend group that we have here, and it's been awesome ever since. And it's been a lot of like obviously sacrifices and things where like I remember when I first moved here, I gave myself like a little bit of a safety blanket financially from all the YouTube stuff. But when you move to a new place and you don't really know what you're doing, and then like the idea of getting into the union and all that stuff was so scary, and it didn't make any sense at the time, and it really still doesn't make much sense. But it's like a very weird thing how you have to do it. But I remember Jason was working on that show with Buddy Joe, and they basically, he didn't tell me that at the time, and I was helping him move pads and doing this. His car broke down one day. We sat at a shop for like 4 or 5 hours. We went and got Chipotle, and I just kept helping him. And finally one day he's like, hey, dude, you want a shot to get your SAG card? And I'm like, dude, that would be crazy. Like, what do you got? And he's like, I'm assisting Buddy Joe on this movie that we're working on right now. And I talked to him, and he's, you know, he saw you helping me the one day, and I've been telling him about you, and he'd like to give you a shot. So I did. So I remember This was during the time of COVID.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go to Swamp Fest, and I was at Swamp Fest when I got a call from Jason, and Jason was like, "Hey, dude, next Monday." So this is Saturday. He goes, "Next Monday, you got to come for a COVID test, and then the shoot days will be Thursday, Friday, and you'll get your SAG card." I packed my shit up at Swamp Fest so fast. My girlfriend was like, "What are we doing?" I'm like, "We gotta go like right now." And she's like, "Why? It's the thing's for Monday. You got to take your COVID test Monday." I go, "I can't be around all these people. God forbid." I was like, imagine like, because this is at the time where it was still like a massive deal, and the testing was like, and it was the testing. Who knows? I could have failed
Well,
by
and for
accident.
those that don't know, Swamp Fest is where you go to get COVID.
Yes,
Like if there was a place to get it, like to give us a description of Swamp Fest.
it's the largest BMX event that I could think of with the most amount of people to go to at one point in time. But it's the loosest BMX event you can go to. It's like fireworks, people in crowds, drinking, doing all this. It's Florida in a nutshell with BMX. It is one of the coolest events that I've seen put on by an individual, and the individual is one of my friends from Florida, and his name's Trey Jones, and he puts this on with his little brother, our other friends, and it was like it started out as a very like tight thing where it was like a few, like maybe 1,000 people, and then every year it grew, and then the year that I was there, it was bonkers. Like we were sleeping in tents and stuff like that, and that's the whole weekend. You sleep in tents and you party and you ride BMX, and at the end of the night, everyone shoots off fireworks. But you're taking 3,000 people, and we're all watching like someone on an obstacle standing maybe like inches away from each other, huddled. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I have to pass the COVID test. I got to get the hell out of here. So we packed up our shit. I said goodbye, love you to all my friends there. I was like, I got to go. They all thought I was insane, and I drove back, passed the COVID test, and then finally got my SAG card, which, I mean, I'll say it right now, it changed my life because I was happy doing the YouTube stuff, but I wasn't like content. And now getting into this, like even though there's a lot of those days where it's like you do a lot of like tasks that you couldn't really like ever, like you're in your head at the time you're doing them, I'm like, man, I don't really know how this is going to help me. But you don't realize until you do the tasks and you learn these random little things that you're like, you can't see at the time as being helpful.
It's Mr. Miyagi stuff for real. You're just like painting fences all day. You're like, why does this matter?
But it's cool because I realize now, knowing what I didn't know then, how influential a lot of that stuff was and how much it taught me, and how lucky I was to be able to do those things. Because if you know, I mean, I've learned a decent amount, and I've had really good friends around me, and you know, whether it's us going to do certain things, like, I mean, I remember one day, me and you, we went and built some truss over at some random studio, and I have no clue what we're doing. It was me, you, and Pat, and we're doing it. But then now it's like, I learned how to build trust that day. I understood how it worked. I understand. And then I learn more and more and more every time I do these random little things. And then it kind of creates like a good
Shout
foundation.
out to Isaac Creative. We love you. See you over at Trilith.
Yeah. So like that was a great day too, but it's all those random little things that you don't really understand at the time that are helping you. But I will say this though, I was getting bored with the YouTube stuff because it was so repetitive. And the thing that's so cool about this industry, even though it's super hard, every day is something different, and every day is like a little new. It's like, and that's the thing with BMX is you do it for so long, and I loved it so much, but you hit a point where it's like almost like a plateau. And you're like, okay, in my head, I'm like, I could keep doing this, and I could keep doing these videos, but I'm not loving it that much. And I could do this, but that wouldn't be really true to myself. So you kind of get to this point where you're almost like stagnant. But then I got into this thing, and every day I learned something new, so it's really fun and exciting. And I'm sure at some point in time, in my head I thought, well, will the film ever become like that to me? And I go, it can, but there's so many avenues within this industry, and every single day is so different. Like when you do a YouTube video, you're around the same dudes, and you're doing the same thing every day. And it's really fun, but it becomes repetitive. When you're in the TV and film, every single day on set, something's different, something's happening. Then you go to the next show and something's different, something's happening. It's always very, very different. There's nothing ever. I mean, the formula is the same to make the movies, but it's different because you're around different people, you're making new relationships. And I've made so many amazing friends in the past year. Like, and that was the only downfall about living in Orlando and doing the BMX stuff is my friend group was cool, but they were very like tight. And I've always been the person that like, I love everybody, man. Like I just try to meet new people and like I think that's part
Breathe
of
them
life.
all in the fold. Yeah.
And my friend group there was very much not into that. Like they were fine to never have another new friend for the rest of their lives, which I was like, I can't do this, man. Like it drove me nuts. But then coming here, I'm like, and Atlanta's an interesting spot, dude, because it's just like such a crazy area. There's so many people.
It's a melting, and there's more showing up every day. So to jump back, I'll give you so much credit because having worked alongside you at this point and then met you when I did, which was very new to this business, specifically stunts, and then to kind of learn your background and the trajectory that you took through life. Every time that you feel like you hit a little plateau or a little stagnation, it's super impressive. And I'll give you so much credit that you're so down to jump and just head first into whatever it is and figure it out.
Yeah.
Fully knowing you know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's funny too because you equally are jumping into things that aren't like. And then I got into accounting, or I went to Fazoli's and got a job. It's like, what's another crapshoot that I can't guarantee a day on for the rest of my life? And you pick another industry that's just like wild and impossible to break into.
Yeah.
And then, much like the cream, it rises to the top.
Yeah.
And in our short time here, I'll say, what, like 2 years?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably been a solid 2 years now, yeah.
The amount of leaps and bounds I've seen you grow, myself included, like what we've been privy to along the way has been fantastic, and I have just so much respect for you as an individual, as a performer. Your little peanut brain is so technically sound, and the way you're able to just absorb freaking information.
Yeah.
Like, if you guys have any questions about your basement and/or crawl space, call this guy because just in 2 weeks he had a little leak, and all of a sudden I feel like he's certified.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Dude. It's funny.
Like a hyper focus.
It's funny you joke, but I've been like that since I was like a little kid. Where it's like, it's so weird to say, but my brain works. If I'm not interested in something, there ain't a shot I'm doing it. But it's very easy for me to get interested in something, especially if it's like a challenge. So then I just dive. So like I remember, I got my house here, and I sold my house in Florida, and I bought my house here in Georgia. And all it took was one real estate agent to be like, "Hey, you gotta make sure you get termite control." And I dove down into the termites and possibility of what kind of, in Georgia we deal with subterranean termites,
Obviously.
And I was like, what's the best way to do it, liquid, or should we do the pods around the house, or should we do a mixture? And I was like, can I do it myself? Should I hire a company? What do I need? And within like 2 weeks of doing this, I was in my crawl space checking certain points to see if there was mud tunnels, all this stuff.
There was a month that I would come over to his house that I could just guarantee he was going to be under the house, like whatever was going on, or he would answer the phone, and you could always tell. Like I'd be like, Alex, you're under the ground right now, aren't you? He's like, yeah.
It's funny, you guys all joke, but maybe I just have this sweet little Xbox set up down there. I'm just
Honestly,
yeah. It'd be kind of cool.
You and Dax are just chilling.
But that's the thing that's, like I said to some, actually I was saying this to someone the other day. We were talking a little bit about things. I was just like, I think anyone can do anything they want. I really do. I think that anyone can do, no matter how hard it is or how little you think you can do it you want. And it's like, even back in the day, like it's easier for me to say it now. But like when I first started doing the YouTube stuff, I didn't care if it worked, but I just wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it did work. And when I moved here, I didn't really know if it was gonna work or not. But I was like, if I don't try, then I know it won't work. So I have to try. And then I think the other thing that has helped me a little bit too is, my close friends will know this as well. I'm not very like a money orientated person. I'm more of like an experience based person. So it's kind of like, if I want to do it, it doesn't matter if there's going to be an economic gain. I just want to do it because I want to do it. And then usually I will say this though, I've noticed, if there's anything, like back in the day when I was trying to do merchandise and I'd have a slow month and I'm like, next month I got to ramp it up to try to make some money to do some stuff at our property, I would come up with all these shirt designs and I'd pump them out, and then that month would end up being my worst month. And the reason for it is because I didn't care. I was just trying to make money to fund this stupid project that I was trying to do. But then it was like the months where I would sit down and think about, like, what do I want to do? What designs do I want to put out that actually make sense, that I'm passionate about? Those would be the best months economically. But it was because it was like, if you want to do something that you actually want to do, you're going to do it regardless of whether there's money. And then that's usually when money starts to come, is like, if you love something enough and you want to do it enough and you'll do it for no money, it seems that every time in my life when I have those scenarios, then by fault, I'm able to make something out of it where I can support myself, which is, I honestly, that's really the only reason people do things, is to be able to like support themselves. But my thing has always been, as long as it's enough to like pay my bills and I can live like a happy lifestyle where I can go to the food store, get food for the house, and put gas in my car, and you know what I mean? Like when I first moved here, that's all I cared about. All I cared about was putting gas in my car. Because I was like, as long as I can drive to every single thing that someone asked me to do, I'm good. Yeah. And I would do it, dude. I remember I sold that van when I got here and I bought that Toyota Tacoma, And within 6 months, I put 25,000 miles in the damn thing.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, how in the hell? I'm like, but I would just any opportunity I would hear about, I would just jump on it and go for it. And people are like, kind of like, I think they're like, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, in my head, I was just like, I don't really know why. I just figured, why not? I was like, I want to do this so bad that I'm willing to do anything it takes to make it happen. And so I would just, every opportunity, whether it was big, small, didn't make sense at the time, or if it did make sense, I was like, let's do it. Let's go for it.
So you say that, and like, obviously, I say obviously, when people are able to operate not from scarcity and find their purpose, their passion, and be in pursuit of that, that's right where you find, ultimately what you're looking for, and then the money comes unintentionally. Flash way back, like you've always been wired that way as far as you can remember. What was it that ticked that little box in your brain that like all of a sudden you were just like, was it the weight loss? Was it something that even led to the weight loss? Like, what do you think set you off?
So I think the weight loss thing is a big portion, because when if I would have told 16-year-old self to look at me where I'm at now in like the weight shape that I'm in now, I'd have laughed. I would have said that's impossible. But all it took was me to spend a month at Monmouth University and see all these kids that I was living with going to these parties and just getting all these girls, and I was like, enough's enough, dude.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to lose this weight. And within a year, I dropped 100 pounds. And it was like a switch that flipped in my head. And I want to say I had that when I was younger, but I'd be lying. When I was younger, I was more of the type of person that would try 1,000 things and then stop doing 1,000 things. I would try this, I'm not really into it. Try this, I'm not really into it. And it was the weight loss that I think I finally saw some fruits of the labor where I was like, oh, I watched myself lose all that weight. And then it flipped a switch in my head. I go, if you want to do something, you can do it. And then I just wired myself that if I come up with an idea, I'm going to follow it through no matter how many roadblocks there are. And eventually it'll work. Because it's like, if you don't try it, you're never going to know if it works or not. And then that's like the weight loss, I will say, is what rewired the brain. But like, even when I was a kid though, like I remember like, I was at the skate park and I would sell t-shirts at the skate park. So it was like always like these weird little things. But all I was ever really trying to do was just fund a fun lifestyle. Yeah. I remember like my mom at the time when I was a kid, and like, again, I owe everything to her. I was like, skate park sessions were $14 a pop. And so she was like down.
So she was driving 69 miles, paying $14, and then driving. Were you chipping in on gas with those t-shirts? What were you doing with that?
So that's the thing. So when I do the t-shirt stuff, then I would buy memberships at the skate park.
Okay.
And then I would do that kind of stuff. But my mom, again, she was super helpful for me in all those years. And, I owe a lot of it to her. And I remember, too, when I took the leap of faith and dropped out of college, my mom, because she was old school, she went to college. She got a degree, and then she went into a job. And she worked from the bottom of the job and then eventually worked her way up to a point where she was in a good financial spot at the job. It was like nothing insanely crazy, but, she worked really, really hard, and she made a good career for herself, and that was one way to do it. And I remember being like, okay, well, times are different. I didn't know what I wanted to do at college. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm wasting money being here. I'm like, I don't want to be here. And I just dropped out. And I remember her saying, well, hopefully it works out. But
well, and also to your credit, too, you had a teacher try to tell you how to do social media and marketing.
Yeah, well, I remember being at Monmouth University, and I went. You
remember that teacher's name?
No, I wish I did. I do. I will say this. I do remember my high school. This is crazy. I'll hyphenate his last name. It's Greg M. He was my high school guidance counselor. So with the guidance counselors, they would basically help all the seniors at the end of the year figure out where they wanted to go to college. So you start this process at the end of sophomore year, or junior year, sorry. And I remember saying to him, like, I just want to pick a college where there's a skate park close by. And I remember it to this day, dude. He was like, you can't pick your college based off of a skate park. That's not how you need to figure out what you want to do for a job to make money. And I was like, I think it's more important to be happy, and then that stuff is fine. But I was like, I want to be happy while I'm doing this process. And it's funny, I remember going back to the 100 and Central, I want to say probably 7-8 years later, and sure as hell, Greg M. still worked there.
Hey, Greg.
And I remember walking into the school with a visitor's pass, and I said, I'm here to see Greg. And they're like, oh, for what? I was like, I was a previous student here. I just wanted to stop in and say hi. I'm in the area. I hadn't been back in my hometown in probably 8 years at that point either.
Yeah.
So I walked in, I went and sat in his room, and I'm like, hey, you remember me? And he's like, looking at me, and he's like, no, not really. And I was like, in my head, I go, I'm Alex Wistance. And he's sitting there, and he's just like, it took him a second. He's like, oh my God. He's like, wow. He's like, good to see it. And he's like, how's life? And I go, and the first thing I said is, hey, remember when you told me how to pick a school base off a skate park? I said, well, I picked a school base off a skate park, dropped out of that school, and then somehow made a career out of it, man. I said, I don't know how it worked. And it was like a really cool conversation.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, too, this is 8 years later now. His mindset had changed so much from those times to this times because of the way society had changed, too. Because now you see these kids in high school that are making $250,000 off of doing TikTok dances. More than that, way more than that. Like, there's kids making millions of dollars off that stuff. You know what I mean? And like, so it was kind of cool to have that kind of go full circle where I'm like,
that's cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, so all of that kind of compiled together that sets you off on this path of evolution of self and all self-discovery that just keeps moving you forward.
Yeah.
You're in stunts right now, as deep as it gets, and your entry into stunts, same as mine, it was uniquely terrible timing. It was COVID into a strike. Do you feel like you're in a position now where, what does 2025 look like for you? I mean, there's lots of rumors of the old water cooler.
Well, so like just to go back on one thing you said, it's like terrible timing. It was terrible timing. Like realistically, like thinking about it, it's like, okay, you move here. It's right after COVID. Then the shows, like right when I got here, the shows were kind of firing out, but I wasn't SAG. So there's all these shows going on, but I can't get into them. But you know, that's part of how it is, and that's the great thing about the union. It's to keep it tight knit. I get it. And then I finally get my SAG card, and then pay my SAG dues. I remember I did the job. The job paid for me to basically get the national, which I think was like $3,000 at the time. Yeah. I think it still is. I don't know. It might be more now. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's changed. But spent the $3,000. 2 weeks later, strike. Yeah. So I was like, oh shit, dude. I was like, sorry. I was like, damn, that's crazy. But I will say, I remember telling my girlfriend this too, because we both moved here at the same exact time. I met her in Florida because she was going to film school, and she was going to stay in Florida and work at a news broadcast station. And I said, you don't want to do that. I want to get into stunts. You want to work in movies. Let's just do it. So we both took the leap of faith together. I think she thought I was absolutely crazy at the time, and she's like,
she still does.
Yeah, she probably still does. But that's the thing is, like, she'll even say it now. She's like, your brain is so wild that I think it's the reason some things kind of happen, because she's like, you don't think twice, which is not a good thing. It's you should probably think twice sometimes, but I don't. And I remember saying, like, this is terrible. I remember we were in this department, and this is before I bought my house, and I remember being like, this sucks. I was like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this sucks. She had just got done with her first job as a PA, and she's stressed out about money. I'm like, I haven't any of the money that I made, I just spent to put towards the SAG card. So I'm like, I'm stressed out about money. That safety blanket's dwindling away rapidly. Yeah. And I'm just like, if we can survive this strike, it means we want it. If we can survive to the end of the strike and we can make it through it and figure out how to do this, and we're still here at the end of this strike, it means that we want to be in this industry and we made the right decision. And both of us fought through it. Strike ended. She got right back on a job. And then, super lucky to be able to get some jobs, right after the strike too, in like the year of 2024. And I owe it all to my friends that are around me and the people that have pushed me and stuff like that. Like, I've got a lot of opportunity from people teaching me and learning and all that stuff. So I think with 2025, I think that we've already seen the fucking worst. It's like, I'm good. Yeah. Like, and if it's slow, it's slow. If it's raging, it's raging. But now that I've been, like, here's the thing: when you're in a strike, it don't matter how slow it is. No one can work. Yeah. So I came in at a time where there's literally no possible way to work, and I figured out how to make it work to be able to get by. So now I'm like, well, shit. If 2025 comes and it's slow, at least there's a chance of getting a job. Yeah. And then if it's raging, well, then hopefully everyone's raging and everyone's doing it, and then the business is growing and coming to thing. I will say this, like, just being from another industry, I think that there's a lot of things, and again, like, I know there's going to be a lot of people that have been in the industry that watch this, and I'm
at least they should.
I'm a young dude. I'm 27, and I don't know shit about the film industry in a whole and entirely. But I will say this though: there's a lot of big investments going into studios and things like that, and it's like, if you think about these companies at large and what they're doing with marketing, I confidently, and again, I could be wrong, so I don't want anyone to be like, oh, he's trying to act like he knows something that we don't. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, looking at it from another perspective, like, if Monster were to invest a shit ton of money into a BMX program and, like, say, Olympic riders, they're going to do that because they know that there's some chance that could be economically strategic for them. So these massive companies that are investing in these studios and these plots of land and building these things in the United States, and in these areas, they must know something that's going to be a thing for longevity. So it's like, I know there's like the fear of AI, but like I think I watched the topic that you and John were talking about, where you had said a good point, where it's like, well, there's always going to be the enthusiasts. Like, I just think that there's a possibility that as we go on, but a lot of people in our industry are worried about AI, but everyone is worried about AI in every industry. The problem is we have blinders on because we're so focused, and like I'm 100% at fault for it. I'm so focused on the film industry because it's all I want to do, and I want to be a stunt guy, and I want to work stunt jobs, and I want to rig, and I want to do stuff like that. I have my blinders up because I'm so focused on this industry. But if you look at like insurance companies, like I have a buddy's mom who works in an insurance company that got laid off because they're using automated systeming now. So it's happening all over the place. But the one thing that I think that I was talking to somebody the other day, and I also was listening to someone that was on Rogan's podcast, my Lord and Savior. Everyone jokes, but I love listening to his podcast because he's got all walks of life. But
I don't have to listen to Joe Rogan because he will just repeat the entire episode to me.
Yeah, it's great. But he has so many different people on there, and I think that the creatives will be the last thing that can get touched by AI, because not that they can't, like I know everyone's talking about the Sora and stuff like that, and it's incredible. Some of the stuff that they're able to do is absolutely incredible. But you got to realize too, if these large corporations are investing so much money, that they're doing it for a reason. And again, anything could happen and anything could shift. But I was like, if we have a negative mindset on it, well, then we're shit out of luck. But if we have a positive if we have a positive mindset on it, and we're all focusing, like if the industry together as a collective whole, if we all learned how to protect each other, then it will elongate it over the long period of time. You know what I mean? Like, and you see, I think the greatest thing about the strike was, and I think the greatest thing about this AI fear and all this stuff is, I've noticed within the last year, there's a lot more camaraderie between individuals in the film industry, between departments, of like, hey, how do we avoid this shit? Because if we let this happen, we're all screwed. It doesn't matter what department you're in. We're all screwed. Like, you think about like my girlfriend works in set deck. If they have AI, dude, they don't need to they could just, like, it could be a blank room, they could put shit over, and then my girlfriend's out of a job because she can't put that camera there, like, in set dress is set. You know what I mean? So it's like, if we all collectively stay together and we stay positive, dude, like, I think it could be fine. I don't know.
Well, so I agree with many aspects of what you just described, but ultimately, I think the big statement you're making is that optimism is what you need to have to carry through, because change is coming regardless. Change is inevitable, and change is always. Yeah. You either stuck, and then avoid the change and then die, or you go with it and evolve. And so fortunately, the way you're wired, regardless of what's coming, I think you'll be all right. And then even acknowledging, as the business changes, it's like the more camaraderie, absolutely, the more support, and then the more internal self-reflection to grow those aspects of ourselves in that space. So, like, specific to how I operate my business right now, what we've done over the last 2 years, diving deep into this industry of stunts, and we could play and perform here for the next 50 years, and that'd be fantastic. And we can, be Buddy Joes and ride out on a stallion,
which would be pretty badass.
That'd be pretty badass.
He's a badass.
He's a badass. But assuming that not be the case, we just have to always be mindful of what change is coming and how do we opportune that within ourselves and with each other. And so what I'm trying to do, with the podcast, with Bad Beard, the company, is really, as you described, like, the creative is going to be the last thing to go, because it can, ones and zeros act creative, but it is not. It is not a human. And so a lot of the base level stuff, it can, put a lamp here or a camera there, but it's never going to be able to replace Bad Beard. Yeah. If I can be that inalienable, intangible thing, then as my company grows, just like your Lord and Savior, Joe Rogan, you can't separate any number of his businesses from that dude. You want that, you got to...
He's the face of many different things that draw in so much money, and if
so
you
it's
did
tough.
an AI version of Joe, I wouldn't watch. I'd be like, I don't want to watch this. It's not Joe.
And so same for stunts. Like, stunts are always going to need to be real, because people want to know and feel that heat. They want to know that danger, and that'll be a thing forever. Thank God. But same conversation is that the more that you can be that identity, that personal self, and just not sit back on your laurels and laziness, and just like, oh, I'll just take the check and just show up. And it's like, no, you got to go, and if you want it, you gotta go get it.
And that's the thing too. Like I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I was like, someone asked me like, hey, like if you could have a dream of being at some point in this career, like what would you want it to be? Like what would you want to be known for? And I was like, I don't, and it's kind of the same thing with the BMX, and it's again, like I find these little formulas that are wired in my head, and I try to repeat them because they seem to be working. And again, it's different for everybody, and it could be wrong for everybody. And I understand that how some people that have been in the business for 20 years can see this and be nervous about it. Like I totally understand it. It's everything they once know is so different, and it's the same thing as the BMX riders in the day. Everything they once knew of going to contests and having a Super Bowl called the X Games, like. I'm proud to say that I never never had to do a crazy big contest like that, and I figured out a way to make my dreams a reality. But it was because of the shift of time. And so the crazy thing is too is like everyone who was in this business 20 years ago, they're going to be the first ones to reimagine and refigure it out. And I see it happening now. Like we have friends that have been in this game for a long time, and all of them are at the top of their game, and all of them are super smart and super sharp individuals. And every one of them, whether they see it or not, like I see it as a bystander looking in, they're evolving and they're crushing. They're doing great. But it's just because it is like a relatively unseen thing. Like it's hard for you to see yourself make those changes. But like someone said the other day, like what would you want to have, like if you had to have something said about you in this like industry? I was like, I just want to be like known as the dude who's just like a hard worker, like
nailed
fucking,
it. I can vouch.
Fucking dick in the dirt, fucking down to do whatever. It doesn't matter. Like I want to be a good performer.
You guys see these LEDs up and down the panels right here?
Yeah, it took us a little bit to get that.
Took us a little bit. Yeah.
Turns out we're not the best LED lighting.
That one's dead over there.
Good thing. The good thing they have people for that. You know, like they're really good at their job. They do it in 10 seconds. But we're down to make something happen. Man. You know. Yeah. So that's like I would love to be a really good performer. I'd love to be really good at rigging and understanding that and keeping people safe and all that stuff. But ultimately, like my main goal is just to be like a really hard worker. And I know that sounds like anybody would say that, but I'm like, realistically, like I don't care what you want me to do. I just want to be a part of it, man. And I just want to make a difference. And that's what's motivating me so hard now is when I was doing the YouTube stuff, I felt so limited. I'm like, this doesn't really, I don't feel like, and it sounds so crazy, but when like you get a call time and it's like be there at 5:30, dude, that was like music to my ears. And I remember my girlfriend being like, that's the craziest thing. You went from living a life where you made your own schedules and can do whatever you want, and now you live a life where you live by other people's schedules and you're being told where to be. But I weirdly like it. Like I like the structure of it, and I like to work hard. So like I said it something today. I said you could throw whatever task you want at me. It could be as crazy or as simple a task. I am going to try to figure out a way to do whatever you ask me to do and do it. And like that's the only thing I want out of this. I was like, I just want to feel a sense of purpose, and I just want to work hard. And I want everyone else around me to do great, and I want everyone else around me to enjoy it and be positive. And I think there's a lot of, like, when you talk about 2025, it's not just film, it's every single industry and every single like every aspect of life. There's a lot of weird shit happening in the world right now. It's a crazy time to be alive. But if you just sit back and you look at it all, and like, everyone gets really down, and everyone has their own levels of like sadness and things that are going wrong and stuff like that. But I was saying to someone the other day, I was like, you sit here and you're bummed out about something. You're like, fuck, I feel like I could be doing better. I could be making more money. I could be doing better at this. I could be a better performer. But I'm like, there's someone somewhere that is way worse than you. And there's someone somewhere that's way worse than that person too. There's always somebody who's got it harder. So I'm like, I just try to find like the stupid little things that like make me happy. And don't get me wrong, I still get bummed out at shit. Like your human nature is to get bummed out.
Your feelings are valid here, Alex.
But that's the thing too. People also have to learn that there's going to be ups and downs, and like you just got to ride the wave.
Yeah, ride that wave.
You'll eventually come out with something. I don't know. Something's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I say I'm always working for little W's. Like we all like big wins, but little W's are enough to keep me going along the way. And I feel similar to you in the sense that like my unbridled optimism is, I wish I could, be a little more pessimistic and go find a secure job, but like I just can't, because I just believe so hardly in what it is I do and how I do it, that it's not a if question, it's a win question.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel similar.
The other thing is too, it's like the cool thing that is what is so great about the film and the stunt community and all that stuff. 5 years, 10 years, if AI takes over and we're all screwed, well, guess what? We're all in it together and we're all figure out how to move on. And that's the cool part about it is it's no one here is like in it for them, like in it by themselves. Like everyone feels the same stressors, everyone feels the same things. And the cool thing is if you got a good group of friends around you, you're all figured out. And like I've noticed just through the past like couple months of talking to close friends and stuff like that, people are changing up the way they do things. People are learning to, save on these things and maybe not spend so much on that and put money over here and do things like that. And, how to change and adapt with times. I think it's just like, but it's because we're all doing it together and we're all experiencing the change at the same time. So do I think that things could change in a weird way? Sure. But I was like, we'll figure it out because if you want something bad enough, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it also didn't come down in a day. So whatever happens, we'll survive.
I'd love to know how fast it went up versus how fast it fell. I imagine it fell pretty
Somebody
quick.
smarter than us knows.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel very thankful to be, in the positions that I've been in, and I feel very thankful to have like the mindset that I have. And, I'm super thankful for you, all my other friends, everyone that I've met here in the time in Georgia. And again, like, it's just, I feel like pretty happy with where I'm at. And I also feel like I'm kind of just starting out, and I'm in the idea of something bigger and better and that's coming is what's exciting. So that's what keeps me motivated. It's like, yeah, it's going to be a rocky road, but at the end of the trail, you know what I mean? It's like the freaking rainbow. At the end of the rainbow, there's a pot of gold. And like in my head, I'm like, if I can just keep telling myself that, and as long as I only tell myself that, like, again, I'm not denying that I am an idiotic optimist for sure. Yeah. But I'm like, it's gonna be great. Everything's gonna be fine.
I always tell myself, man. Well,
yeah.
and to jump back and not reiterate too much, but as you described, like, our entry into stunts and just the last year in general. I had a broken knee before the strike even started.
Yeah.
And so talking to Meg or anyone, Regis yesterday or whoever, Cooper, it's just like, it cannot be any worse than that. Like, if there's any work this year, I feel like I'll be working more than I was last year.
Yeah,
and
dude.
So,
and that's the way to look at it. It's always like, that's the way to...
Not what could go wrong. It's like, well, what could go right?
Yeah. And that's the way to look at it for sure, too. Because it's like, if you spend your time dwelling on the negatives, well, you're going to stay stuck in the negatives. But if you spend... And the like, perfect example, like, you talk to guys like those, like Reg and Coop and all those dudes, and they've been in the game for a long time. And they're finding the positives, too. So me being new to it and being, scared and not understanding of how this industry works, I look at these guys who've been in it forever, and I go, their world is way different. Because, like, again, like I said, like, to kind of reiterate, not go over it too many times, but if you've been in an industry for 20 years and all of a sudden you start seeing things change, it's going to be scary as hell. But I've watched a lot of these people, put the freaking helmet on, takes the hits to the head, and just keep on trucking
with a smile on their face.
And I'm like, all right, cool. If they're doing it, well, then my new ass has no excuses. I'm doing it too. Let's go.
Yeah, I would equally give a lot of credit to the guys we surround ourselves with, like Cooper and Regis, who we're talking about, and so many, Alan and you name it. Just these guys in the industry that do things so gracefully and have so much on the line. Like, you think of covert cameras, like every one of those rigs, is I can't put it.
Dude.
And so if that's the kind of the weight they're carrying through this this transition and all things, it's like, and they do it with such grace, then I'm like, then I can hold my shit together and just yap down in my basement.
And a lot of the people that have really, really helped me out this year, and they know who they are for sure. Their overheads and their time in this business is tenfold what I don't really have any overhead in this business.
You got a dog.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, in my head, I'm just like, it's going to be good. And to see them push through and still want to help someone like me, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. Like, and I think it's going to be awesome. And if it's not, figure it out.
Figure it out.
Again, I'm a dumb, optimistic person. I'm like, I think it's going to be great. But the cool thing is too, it's like, again, every single thing that a lot of these people, and that's the thing that I feel like sometimes people forget. In the past year, the stuff that I've learned, I've seen it apply to whether it's a knot that I learned how to tie for something that we're doing at work. I'm like going to strap something in my truck the other day. I'm like, holy shit, dude, I could use this knot right now. Let's do it. And it's like the most ridiculous, but that's like a little thing in my head that makes me smile where I'm like, well, that's cool. Yeah, this is great. We're learning things that apply to every aspect of life. So I think any of the people that are in this industry that have made it as far as they have, like some of the people that have mentored me this year, whatever those people go to try to do, if this industry were to have an issue at some point in time, they're going to be super successful at it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that are hyper successful in this business are like, just, it seems like they'd be good at anything they did. You know what I mean? Like they're going to
that
try
sweat
their
equity,
efforts.
it translates regardless of what the industry is.
Yeah.
Like these are just hardworking folk, and they'll land on their feet regardless, even if they're supposed to land on their back.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking for about
What does it say?
an hour and 2 minutes, and I know you got to run, so I want to make sure you have time to plug what it is going on in your life, whatever. Talk about your termite camp,
Yeah.
courses you're putting out for folks.
It's funny because if you would have asked me this 2 years ago, I'd have a bunch of shit to plug, but now I don't have really anything to plug.
Yeah.
I guess,
Then in that case, this today's episode is brought by Brunt.
yeah. Well,
What is
yeah,
Brunt?
I would have used to plug them too, but we don't do anything with that anymore.
Oh, okay.
But
All
they're
right,
still
well,
a great company. Great.
Are
great
you
company.
warm in that sweater?
I am very warm.
All right, thanks, Brunt.
Great company, American made, good dudes. They're
Okay.
they're awesome. Yeah, I support any of it, and you know what I mean. Yeah, 2025. Let's get after it. I'm stoked
Let's get after
I'm stoked
it.
to finally have a podcast with you that made it out. It's sweet.
Yeah, I think I'll probably put this out in the next couple of days. But yeah, 2025 is exciting.
Actually, no. I'll plug some.
Yeah.
I'll plug some. More plug in. All the people in the past 2 years that have touched my life, whether they realize they have or not, thank you. Because when I was getting over the BMX stuff and over the YouTube stuff, I was kind of unsure of what I wanted to do, and I dove into this not knowing anything. And everyone that I met here in my time in Georgia has made it amazing, and my life has drastically gotten better for the good. And I just want to say thank you to you guys, because if it wasn't for all the people that I have surrounded myself with in my life now, I think that I wouldn't be as happy as I am, and I owe that happiness to a lot of these people. And I think that 2025 is going to be a badass year. I think 2026 is going to be a badass year. And I think, as long as we all keep doing what we're doing, it's going to be kick-ass.
That's it, man. Another compliment to the gratitude you have, because it's not that you've left BMX, it's not that you've left YouTube. Like, you can take hiatus and such, but it's all tools in your toolbox still.
Yeah.
And the same way I've heard you talk about all of it, it's all just been opportunity after opportunity. And so to hear you respectfully pay respects where they are due, I the same and grateful for all of you guys, and thank you so much for watching today. I mentioned yesterday the show is going on the road, and so we'll be in Vegas next in like a couple weeks.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
Sin City.
That's what they call it. Not a gambler. I don't know.
You going to go to Area 15?
I probably won't leave the hotel, because I'm saving those pennies, and I'll be a busy boy at AIM Expo with Vana, and then the One Moto Show there first, outside of Portland, auxiliary experience. So that's what I'll be doing, and I hope to see you guys out there. And let me know what you guys think about the show. You're going to love this one, because we got the big boy.
I don't know if that means you're going to love it, but I hopefully you do. I love you guys. That's all that cares. That's all that matters.
All right, well, we love you guys, and until next time.
See ya. That was pretty good.
That was great.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, how you feel?
Good. I hate doing those, but I could muscle through it.
No, I think it was, one, I think it was good, and then two, I think we keep it very wide reaching.
Well, that's the cool thing about your podcast too, is you interview. Like that's the reason Joe's shit's so good, because he interviews so many